everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. 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 'Cause your love changes everything. Your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. You turn my morning into dancing. 'Cause your love changes everything. Your love changes everything. Oh, there's something about your love. Something about your love changes everything in my body. Oh, something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. It changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. It changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. Changes everything. Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything. You turn my morning into dancing. 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 Something about your love. Something about your love changes everything.
Good morning, Rooted Men. Pastor Tom, Firmly Rooted Ministries. It is Thursday morning. It is wet out there. Man, yesterday that snow came in the evening. Kimberly and I were out to eat in Lake Orion, and because the temperatures fell below freezing so quickly, it was like an ice rink getting home. We actually couldn't come up the hill. The police were stopping people coming up that little tiny hill on Seymour Lake Road. So we had to go through Waterstone and around. But wow, man, there was cars sliding all over the place. It was insane. But it's good to have you. It looks like we might see a little sun today. I hope. That's great. We're live in all the right places. I'm assuming you can hear me because you could hear me yesterday. That's kind of a weird, scary thing, but I think we're doing all right. Let's see who's on board. Come on, where are we? Besides me, Chuck B. Shalom, gentlemen. I'm out there on X. Chris Connolly. Eric, good morning. Toasty warm blessings on you all. Yes, only if we had Ruth's electric vest and electric hand warmers and electric everything else she has heated. Bert Reggiani, good morning, gentlemen. Ken Gooch, good morning, fellow brothers in arms. Plus, quite a few others are on. Audio and video are good. All right, thank you very much, Eric. All right. I'm going to pull up. We're going to look at the first 15 verses of Genesis chapter 18. And remember, we're talking about Abraham now. His name has been changed from Abram to Abraham, father of many. Sarai is now Sarah. And at 99 years old for Abraham and about 90 years old for Sarah, God says they're going to have a child, and that child is going to carry the promised covenant, which ultimately gets to Jesus. And we remember yesterday, Abraham has trouble believing that this is even possible. He has trouble wrapping his mind around it at 99 years old. And he kind of says, God, why don't we just make it easy and make it Ishmael? And God says, no, Ishmael is going to be blessed, and he is going to be the generator of generations of individuals and nations as well. Hey, good morning, Brian Flaming. But no, it's going to be your son that you're going to give birth to when you're 100 years old, and she's going to be about 91. And he laughs. And so God says you're going to call the child Isaac. Laughter. And then we have that whole situation where they create the covenant. God creates the covenant, and there's circumcision, and that divine covenant starts and continues. In chapter 18, it's Sarah's turn. 3 visitors. The Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. Abraham looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby, believed to be, 1, Jesus, the second person of the Trinity in a theophany, that he's revealing himself in a human form, and 2 angels. And we're going to find out why in the rest of the reading, probably tomorrow, where you have the Lord staying with Abraham while the 2 angels get sent to Sodom and Gomorrah. But I don't want to get ahead of that reading. Abraham looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bowed low to the ground, right? This bowing low to the ground, right? When the leper was healed, he fell at Jesus' feet. There needs to be, in our understanding of the fear and reverence of God, that we as men of God come low. It's not degrading. We're lifting him up. We're lifting him up. I mean, we got to go low when we start to consider who he is. Notice how his faith is growing. Abraham is believing God. God is active in his life. He said, if I found favor in your eyes, my Lord, do not pass your servant by. Let a little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and rest under the tree. Let me get you some to eat so that you can be refreshed, and then go on your way, now that you have come to your servant. Very well, they answered. Do as you say. So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah. Quick, he said, get 3 seahs of finest flour, knead it, and bake some bread. Then he ran to the herd and selected a choice tender calf and gave it to the servant who hurried and prepared it. Then he brought some curds and milk and the calf that had been prepared and set them before them. They ate. He stood near them under a tree. They ate. Angels. They ate. This theophany, Jesus, second person of the Trinity, becoming a man in the form of a man. Wow. They ate. Where's your wife Sarah? They asked. They're in the tent. Then one of them said, I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Here is the second time the promise is given. This is probably, maybe, I'm guessing, verse chapter 17 and chapter 18. Maybe there's some weeks or a few months in between, but not much, because Isaac needed to be born the next year. But now Sarah is going to overhear. So I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah, your wife, will have a son. Now Sarah was listening at the entrance to the tent, which was behind him. Abraham and Sarah were already very old, right? Nearly 100 and a little over 90. And Sarah was past the age of childbearing. Lock that down. So it is impossible for her to have a baby. So Sarah laughed to herself as she thought, after I am worn out and my Lord is old, will I now have this pleasure? She laughed to herself. Is it a laugh of unbelief? Is it a laugh of a combination of unbelief and how can this be? And it's probably a combination of all of these things, because she too knows that this is the Lord and these are angels. These are no just human visitors. But it's too overwhelming. How do you wrap your mind around the fact that God's going to do the impossible for you? Then the Lord said to Abram, why did Sarah laugh and say, will I really have a child now that I am old? Lock this down, this next phrase. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Genesis 18:14. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Is something too hard for you, gentlemen? Are you trying to control something that's out of your control? Are you trying to hold something in? Are you trying to handle a storm? Are you trying to stop an earthquake? Are you trying to manhandle a situation that you cannot handle? Give it to the one that nothing is too hard for him, that he can do the impossible. I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son. Sarah was afraid, so she lied and said, I didn't laugh. But he said, yes, you did. God's grace. He didn't punish her. He didn't punish Abraham. He is okay with our doubts and our fears. He's okay with our frustrations and even anger sometimes, guys. What he wants is just for us to be honest with ourselves and honest with him. He'll take that. What he doesn't want is deception. What he doesn't want is hypocrisy. What he doesn't want us is saying one thing because that's what we think he wants to hear, but then doing another. He's looking for integrity. So we firmly root ourselves in God's unconditional love and his eternal truth. And we do that so that we might have integrity, so that we might know his promises, trust his promises, even when our earthly mind and our logical mind says it's impossible. There is nothing impossible for him. I know we know this. Sarah's going to have that baby. At 91 years old, she's going to have that baby. At 100 years old, Abraham is going to be holding Isaac. Two things. Remember the things he's done. Don't let go. Remember. God has done things in your life and my life that we need to keep remembering and keep repeating. Because when we do that, It reminds us that he'll do the same thing today and he'll do the same thing tomorrow. Why? Because he's unchanging. And maybe just reflect a little bit in your life and ask yourself, what is something that I'm trying to hold on to? What is something that I'm trying to control by myself, that I, as a feeble human being, am trying to manhandle and make this thing happen? And how about just let go and trust God? Put it into his hands. Put it into his hands. All right. That's all I have for you. Blessings on your day. Make it a firmly rooted day, and may someone see Jesus in us today. Peace.